Is climate change something that is a cause of concern for us as Lagosians, or should just focus on our problem and face our Lagos traffic that is more, that we feel more?
Climate change is real. For Lagos or for Nigeria, the highest ranking contributor to climate change is generator emission. We must take a moment to really become more purposeful and deliberate about the actions that we take. God forbid anything goes wrong. It's going to be really heavy for us in Lagos, for that matter. And the mass population is not making it any easier for us.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. This is a Ways exclusive special with Titi Oshodi. She is the special advisor to the government, the Lagos State government, on climate change and circular economy. And I'm super excited to be sitting with this brilliant mind here this evening. Hi, how are you? You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you. I'm just next to you. I should be looking amazing.
It's so interesting. You have been recognized for such exceptional administrative, executive, change management, leadership roles across different spheres of your career over the years. I mean, do you want to touch a little bit, because people will be wondering, who is this pretty woman? You know, let them know that it's not just beauty. There's a lot of brains to the prettiness.
So it was more like a fickle before you now get into understanding what beauty really is about. But I started my journey as a marketing communicator. I worked with an experiential marketing company where I learned a lot about branding and public relations. And I sort of honed my skill in the area of planning events and project management. And then I went on to a PR executive role as a general manager with a PR company in Abuja. And then because I wanted to perform my role as a mother, my young one was entering into university, so I had to come back, and so I started my own business. And at that time, I had a side gig with team building. Because I was also with personnel management, the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. And, but I've always found myself to be very finicky. I'm very careful about organization. I understand systems integration. I understand how to facilitate when I see a space or a group or a platform. I always look for ways to optimize that space, or optimize, competences and skills, so that sort of just, narrowed down into the team building gig that I had. And I'd done one for LSDPC. At that time, the governor was
he was the MD of the
Yes, he was the MD of LSDPC.
Yeah.
And I did a side gig with, team management, bond, capacity building with his senior managers. And I think that was where we started to know who I was. And so when he called me to be his campaign manager and, for the campaign office at the time, 2019. And long story short, I became his SSA, and then, just honing, because sometimes you just get a calling and you just feel like this is where my calling is, the skill that is showing forth, with my calling. So communications, PR just became more and more evident for me to swell into. And, so I ran a gig again, during the campaign period. And then I just sort of sold myself and said, I could do this. So I thought that, I would do well with being an administrator there and all of that. But when he wanted to, get me a job, he gave me climate change.
I was coming there.
Oh my God, what am I going to do with
like from where to where? But first of all, before we even go into climate change, tell me how it has been for you. Because, we talk about how we need a lot more technocrats in government, right? Because they understand systems, they understand structures, they understand how to run, companies, right? And You are a technocrat that moved from just being, a technocrat business and, the corporate world into now a governance structure. How has that been for you?
I tell you no lie, I don't think it's any different because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with competences, you're dealing with personalities, from various backgrounds. Sometimes people tend to want to create a differentiate between the two. And I don't think that, so we limit politics to governance and we say that's where you have politics. I dare say you have more politics in private sector than public sector because, as long as you're within an environment where people want to strive, where people want to rise and people want to be able to make a difference for themselves and for the people that they're at. There will always be interests, there will always be agendas, there will always be motives, and there will always be incentives, So it brings up the space, not only for interpersonal relationship, it brings up a space for negotiation. It brings up a space for finding yourself, identity. It brings up a space for character education as well. So maybe you could say that with private sector, there's a lot more because there's structure. There seems to be a structure, and there are evaluating measurements matrix, that you can use to be able to appraise performance, and those things can be recorded as indices for you, and then people can actually, record and benchmark your progress on that, and I think that public space is also coming into that sphere as well. But I think that, it's helped me. Public space has helped me to be more resourceful, more resilient, more tenacious, because of the fact that there isn't that much structure for appraisal. It's more people-centric. It's more relationship.
So they have to see that work
to be able to see the work. You have to continuously work on connecting, with people. And then it becomes a derivative of what you want to become or where you're going or your trajectory, because sometimes it's even just driven by emotions. It can be that agile, but I have been very blessed. I think that at each point in time, I have been surrounded by friends and colleagues, people who sort of share visions with you, and you will go through the tides, but somehow you just find yourself, you find your identity, and you're more discerning. You're more discerning because you're open to learning, you're open to reading, you're open to growing within the sphere. There's a lot of, negotiating.
Absolutely. I mean, if you work in the Absolutely. If you work in the government space, you must understand people management. You must learn that act of negotiation. You go back, yes, so this one, you must meet compromises. You must meet halfway trade-offs, all of those things.
Ground, common ground,
absolutely. You must find all of those things because it's not one size fits. And I deliberately asked that question because I don't know the young person that is watching, because a lot of us, we just feel like it has to be, it doesn't work that way. There has to be some level of negotiation. You must take the conversations higher, and just build on, whatever it is, and, build relationships on the way as well. So, I mean, we're talking about circular economy, right? A circular economy is an economic system that aims to maximize, waste, keep resources in use for long as purpose, and regenerate natural systems. I mean, it's a complete structure where you reuse, you maintain, you refurbish, you recycle, recompost, and all of those things, right? When I look at the landscape of Lagos, right, there's a lot that is happening, and all I see is money. So I'm happy talking to you because I've complained about this thing several times. Recently, we saw that a lot of ceilings, they've been sealing a lot of places because of environmental pollutions and all of that. I said that's a fantastic idea, but can we move the conversation even a notch higher, where we then say, okay, how do we channel some of these concerns, right? Because they are concerns or challenges, you call them. How do we channel it into something that becomes a lot more profitable, which is directly sitting on your table, So, circular economy, walk us through what it is for Lagos, right? Then before we then move on to climate change.
Okay, so you've clearly defined circular economy. It's even more magical that you see money in circular economy.
I see it all.
And that is where we want to take that conversation to. The ability to regenerate what appears like waste takes a lot of knowledge, right? I think that if we do not have the right model of education and the right level of enlightenment for the people, they will continue to be ignorant about the treasures that are hidden all around them. The Lagos state government is really beginning to work in that space. If you find what is happening with the landfills, if you ask the average scavenger about waste management, we've heard so many stories of those who have used money as scavengers to travel out of the country and build something for themselves. As a matter of fact, it's almost like a cartel right now. The Lagos State Waste Management Agency comes in, in the area of recycling and that circular economy. Like you have said, everything that is happening within that industry is a treasure, a gem waiting to turn around for wealth, and what could make it painful is the fact that we are ignorant. We're not, we need to make our populace, we need to make ourselves understand that this is a potential life-changing empowerment system for us. So the LOMA agency, LOMA they have quite a bit of, features and, provisions within their mandates to provide that opportunity, like I was talking about the scavengers, so they have been able to plug into the existence, that value chain, and they are actually building a whole new government, a whole new portfolio, almost like a cartel, operating in that place, because they see the potential and it is huge. Right now, we need to start to educate our people about segregating their waste.
But this thing you're saying, right? I know previous administrations have tried. I mean, at some point in Fashila's administration, I remember that, when you go to certain designated bus stops or areas, you would see 3 different kinds of colored, what's it called? Trash cans, yes. Indicating what to put where, yes. Like you have in other international world, right? Yes. So like literally every single government, I mean, Ambode came at some point, he tried the the Visionscape structure that wasn't working, yes. And all of that. So what is the real problem? Is it the lack of the understanding of the benefits that has made it failed in the past, or you feel like maybe the government has not really gotten the right formula? Which is what?
Okay, so I think first and foremost that those implementations, we have not pulled sufficient data for us to be able to analyze how to draw the next phase of tasks. So those things have happened. However, sometimes when you analyze data, when you implement on a project, your analysis and how you aggregate the data helps you to be able to draw the insights that is necessary for you to be able to know where you're pouring the next level of revenue, or where you're pouring how to shape the next phase of the initiative. Okay, now some people have successfully understood what waste segregation or separation is about. However, within the mass market population, how much of education has been impacted in that area? And let me remind you that where you have the volume of waste is actually in those places. They may not be necessarily, have the high disposable income, but the turnover of their activities produces more waste such that we're not talking just, even just that nylon,
Sachet water.
sachet
Oh my
water.
God. Tell me about
Do you understand? So that you have the bottles, which would fall within the middle class captive market, but those little ones, those paper ones, they are the ones that do so much damage because their level of
Yeah, and they are
degradation
non-degradable.
is, yes,
Absolutely.
they don't degrade. They take like 10, 15 years for them to become degradable.
Some are even non-degradable.
Non-degradable. So because one, you see, communication is also very key. When you tell somebody, for instance, that I need you to take this bracelet off of you, right? The way our parents used to do, take this bracelet off of you. Why should I do? Just take it off because I tell you to do so. It's different from take that bracelet off of you because it could hurt you. It could cause
Tell the
damage.
why.
Tell the why. Do you understand? Explain the value chain. And then, because of the psyche of the average African person, let them see how they can even benefit from it. Okay? So you see, people who are in the waste management business, who are actually recycling products and making them, turning them, converting them into wealthy items. You know, my laptop as we speak right now was made out of a mesh of these non-degradable nylon bags, you know, and if you look at it, you would never believe that it is a mesh of this nylon bag.
I mean, I've seen fantastic. I think there's a lady in Lagos State that recycles used tires.
Yes.
She converts them into interlocking stones, paving stones.
That is another one that we have not totally optimized.
I'm telling you. So, I mean, so there's this, what's it called, the dumpster at Alausa.
Yes.
That's the
Olusosun. Yes.
That every time I see that place, okay, you know what? I studied physics in school, so let me give you a disclaimer. And one of my, so you know, before you graduate, you have to do your project. You have to also do your, what's the word now? Somewhat like a semi-project before the main project. And that my mini project was on biogas, right? So immediately I finished. This was what year was this now? 2005 or 2004? Immediately I finished that project, I kept on dreaming and seeing myself, you know, like, how do we start to convert some of this waste into biogas? Because, I mean, countries like India, they've successfully perfected, you know, conversions of those. Because if you check the amount of gas emission, even just standing in that place, you would see it.
Yes.
You know,
It
lights up by itself because all those things are gas that could be used as bottled, as cooking gas. Like so many things can be used from that dumpster. And that thing is huge, right? So, I mean, is the government looking into that place? Because you see, outside of the dumpster in itself, the entire environment around that area, you know, especially when it rains or something, the entire air is completely polluted. I mean, there was a research that was said that the quality of World Air Quality Index report that Lagos often experiences unhealthy air quality level of particulate matter of 2.5, which is proven that this thing is a health hazard for a lot of residents that are around Lagos. So when I look at that Olusosun, I'm just thinking, oh my God, you know, but I see the money, you know, so why are we not maximizing places like that and converting them into something that can increase our IGR?
There's been a lot of improvement in the process for Olusosun. If you remember the way where it was and how much has been done in, I mean, taking them far back into the space so that it's not too present within the immediate environment. However, that's sort of project, right? You've talked about emission, you've talked about the level, you know, the quality of what can be done. The LOMA agency are already talking to international funders, right? When I went to one of the African countries, I think it was Zimbabwe, I found a simple fabrication method that was developed at the back of each house, and it was dung, carbon, it was waste, produced in a fabricated bed, run with pipes from the outside into the kitchen, right? And producing methane. And methane fire is very clean.
Very clean.
Very clean, and it's not the one, it's blue flame, when it evaporates, it easily dissolves, into the air, so we've had, funders and organizations, and the government is really, really keen on how to be able to convert. There's also the aspect of moving that whole land mass, that landfill, into someplace outside of Lagos. But you see, the thing, sometimes with government, there's so many things that you have to check. There are many, many layers that you have to check, and they have to be organizationally implementable. They have to be technically accurate. You have to have, the right stakeholders, involved in it, so that you're not spending money and it's not properly accounted for. There must be transparency. You want to take, both economic and social development of the area and of the state in itself. You want to take that into consideration. So these are not the sort of things that you just rush, on the go. But I can tell you that there's a lot of work, because having to decide whether to go the route of incinerators, for the landfill, or just using a model that can help with the conversion, for the use of, the people. And even at that, that there also has to be the aspect of deriving impact, so that there is still direct value, for the average everyday person. So the whole ecosystem has to be right, and that sort of MOU, when you're drawing an MOU with international funders and the organizations, they want to be sure that all of those things are...
Those metrics are checked.
But there is work going on that. I can tell you that much.
Well, let me take you for your word. Yes. I mean, that for me would make a lot of sense, right? Because we're talking about building a more climate friendlier Lagos. You're talking about a cleaner Lagos. We're talking about a sustainable Lagos, right? So let's come back to the people. Like, literally, if you can give me the authority to hold the koboko, right? I literally want to hold the koboko and flog some people, because sometimes it makes no sense how we treat our environment, right? There's the part of the people. First of all, is climate change real in Lagos, Nigeria? Let's leave it to our Lagos, but generally, is climate change a thing that we should concern ourselves? Because I've heard this argument several times, where people go and say, this for Imbo people, is not for us, So you are the special advisor to the government, or the Lagos State government, on climate change, right?
Yes.
So is climate change something that is a cause of concern for us as Lagosians, or should just focus on our problem and face our Lagos traffic that is more, that we feel more?
Climate change is real. I don't even know how. I'm hoping that this podcast, or this, would go far. Climate change is real. I have spoken to people that are, of the same value, of the same level of exposure, the same level of knowledge, and they ask me, it's got nothing to do with us. It's the people who have hurricanes and, volcanoes and
tornadoes.
I'm mortified when I hear that, because the question is this: why do we have changing seasons? Why do we have rain still falling in October? Why do we have heat waves, at night, rising temperature when it's supposed to be cooling? Why is there high tidal waves, upon the seas? Our land crop, they're not producing that the way they're supposed to. There's so many things that are happening that is not the usual way of how things are happening. We're getting closer and closer, to the hemisphere. It's getting closer and closer to the sun. Do you understand? So what it means is that the the symptom of climate change in other areas may not necessarily be what it is on our side, but that doesn't mean that climate change is not affecting us. It doesn't mean that this is not what we're also experiencing. So, we must take a moment to really become more purposeful and deliberate about the actions that we take. We must be knowledgeable. We must be aware. We must create that sensitization within our local community regarding our behavioral attitude, our behavioral actions, so that climate-friendly actions must be learned. We must learn how to build resilience because it's happening. It's inevitable. It's happening. And we must be able to open up our minds to collaborate and partner within and outside to be able to mitigate the effect of climate change. Our lands are degrading. We live on a coastal line, the tides are getting closer
and closer to us. Absolutely.
Great flooding, aside from
the dams that are being opened,
that the dams and the stuff that are blocking, the waters are rising higher and higher, and they're hitting us. God forbid anything goes wrong, it's going to be really heavy for us in Lagos, for that matter, and the mass population is not making it any easier for us. So I give a lot of kudos to the commissioner for environment, and his team. Yes, I have to, because yes, it seems a bit harsh, but I honestly think that if the markets were actually able to develop their own internal cleaning and sanitation processes, and it had to take a shutdown of the market for that to be happened, then it is gross indiscipline.
On that note, we will take a very short break. When we come back from the break, we'll continue this exclusive. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. If you just tuned in, we're having an exclusive with Titi Oshodi. She's the special advisor on climate change and circular economy. All right, so thank you so much. I mean, this conversation is really getting to where I want it to go to. Like you rightly said, commending the Commissioner for Environment, right? Doing an amazing job, by the way, because truth be told, when I look at Lagosians, I see a high level of gross indiscipline. And this is getting worse by the day. I think the governor that have been able to tackle these stubborn people has been Fashola to some extent, right? I am beginning to see that responsibility waking up again, where people are now taking responsibility for their actions. They are now being intentional about doing the right thing. And with the Commissioner for Environment going around sealing up all these environmental hazards, I'll call them, these places that are environmental hazards for us, it's a good thing. But beyond sealing the place, right, how do we enforce? Because sometimes it's not just about saying, okay, I will seal it and all of that. We need to put a structure. That's why I told you earlier that if you can give me koboko, I don't mind. Because all those people that bring down their car windows and throw things out of the car, I really need to literally carry a koboko and go and flog them. That's like, So how do we enforce it? How do we start to get people to pay fines, get people to, what kind of structure can be very effective to really drive home that point of taking care of our environment and building a cleaner Lagos?
I think that strategy has to be a push-pull, right? Push is when you're hard on people. There are levies, there are duties, there are penalties that you pay for defaulting in what is declared as a regulation or a policy. I think that driving it through, first and foremost, maybe the HoReCas, the hotel owners, the restaurants, the cafes, organizations, I think that there has to be a layout policy, regulation, where it is that they know what is required of them, what is expected of them. It forms as a guideline, because when there's no law, then there's no error.
Absolutely.
When there's a law, people already are faced with what is required or what is expected of them. However, there's also the pull aspect. And the pull aspect is where it is that you teach people, you educate them about the effect of the vices. Help them to understand that we're doing this because of your own goodwill, because of your well-being, because of and your safety and your security, you know. And then on the back end, you also create, because you see, you have to skew policies, understanding the nuance and the culture. You know, for some people, you have to make it hard for them to wake up to it. For some people, you just need to let them know how it is useful for them. For some people, you have to say what is in it. What
is in it for me? The negotiation.
Negotiation. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? So in scaling and segregating that market, you know, you get to understand what is the incentive for getting, you know, your own expected output. So I also feel that incentivizing at some point within the ecosystem helps people to be able to know that I can be empowered through this. So if I can play in this value chain. So for instance, if you're empowering people as sanitation agents, or they used to call them wole wole, you know, and wole wole people know that when they go, like in London now, you cannot park for a traffic, somebody who is what do they call those people
the ticketing officers?
You beg from today to tomorrow, you know, because they know that their money is also tied to that thing. Do you understand? So if you create a scheme such that there are wole wole officers who will do their darndest to ensure that culpable people are held to account, right? It's a pull effect. So it's not hard on people. Those who already are good-natured or who are already speak and span people or responsible people will not fall into it, but you will still find some people who will fall and they will have to change and recalibrate their minds. And then you have those who you will enforce before they are recalibrated. So I think that all of those things have to be within the mechanics of the strategy. And there's also the aspect of providing the infrastructure for easy access. For instance, we must have at a certain measured space, you have a dustbin, you have a bean bag, you have some place where, you know, people, so if I've used, you know, items in my car and, you know, and I want to throw them out, you know, I should, within a certain radius, be able to find a dustbin or a trash can that can help me. And then we can then take it to the next level to say, oh, you know what? We need, now that people are beginning to abide by, you know, understand and again, incorporate trash can, not people picking up trash and go and melt it and use it for money or use it for to you know. So there's also that aspect as well, because the maintenance culture also has to be infused into the strategic plan, you know. So if I know that by the time I walk another 1 meter radius, I should find a dustbin or a trash can somewhere, then it encourages me to hold on to my dirt or to my container or whatever for a short period until I find, and I can just dispose of it and I can go on. And then we can, in our educational strategy and approach, we can then take it a notch higher and scale it to, you can actually sort. So when you see a trash can, you'll be able to know if it is for bottle or if it is for organic materials or if it is for, you know, things that have water. Do you understand? So we can't.
So I mean, that falls directly under your purview, right? Yes. Because when we talk about building a sustainable, environmentally friendly Lagos, it is, I mean, that is directly under your purview. And I think there was some point in this state where, especially when these people that started green energy,
yes,
when they started green energy, they incentivized it so much so that a lot of people were very conscious of this thing, but we just relapsed immediately, right? So how do we bring it back? Because there are so many factors playing out here. if we talk about cleaner Lagos, cleaner environment, we're talking about getting rid of generators, moving towards, more cleaner sources of energy like solar and all of that. That's one angle. Then even for recycling, right? How do we do we say, okay, for every household, when we pick up your I mean, my sister she lives in both France and the US. I remember when I was there earlier this year in the US, I don't know what my mother did. My mother shall put something inside that dustbin. Do you know that those people did not carry that dustbin? They left the dustbin there for you sort it out yourself. They didn't pick it up. So it was there for 2-3 days. She had to then take it, and she now took it to the bigger incinerator. Then, if you see the stern warning, she told my mother.
That is the pull aspect.
Do you get what yeah. So I'm
subtle enforcement. It's not direct.
It's not
like
direct.
We're not going to treat it for you.
No problem.
It's your responsibility. Go and sort it
Absolutely.
out. When it becomes a menace in your house and it's smelling, you won't have a choice but to go and clean it up.
So I'm just trying to allude to what you said, right? If we start to have, maybe the Loma guys that are picking up the dirt to say, okay, what? First of all, in every household, we must have the green, the blue, and the black bins.
The bins.
Do you understand? I mean, they had those bins around Lagos. Again, you will also look at the factor that some of these things were stolen off of the streets. So when I look at Lagos, it's so complex, and the problem is, I call it hydra-headed, because there are just too many factors that causes some of these things, right? So how do we enforce it in a way that it is sustainable? Tomorrow, if you I'm hoping that, yes, by God's grace, your tenure will be beautiful and all of that. But I want a situation where when Titi Oshodi is no longer there, there's somebody else that, and it's just sustained, because we don't want a situation where something happens now, it's looking so good, and all of a sudden there's a relapse because another person is coming in and that person's path is completely different from the previous predecessor. So how do we plan that?
In all of that, we can't take funding away from this. Because I remember when we used to have those waste bins, and they came, for sure, even the last administration, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, he actually expended, there was a huge expenditure on, waste sorting, and there was a lot of, money spent into an awareness campaign for people to be able to understand, driving it through Loma and all of that, but this is where collaboration and partnership is important, because if there's a demand for something, supply has to be overwhelming for that demand. There's a level of demand that is required for that thing to be sustainable, for that process to be sustainable. And right about now, again, we come to data, because you can't take away that at some point you will find somebody stealing, the bin, or, using it or losing it at some point in time. But the availability comes with supply, right? And then helping people to also understand. That's why I said the first skill, the first interface into this area is at least understanding that in your kitchen, even if you do not even have to take it out. If you want to secure the bins in your kitchen, sort that waste. Understand that there are certain collectors and they're different from each other. Or even if they are the same, you're already scaling to a level in the ecosystem, in the value chain, for people, for the operators to be able to take it to the next level, So funding, we cannot overemphasize. That would help us a great deal, and I think that the space is really, really opening up for that, because we have realized that it's a global it's a global situation. Circular economy, is expected, but climate change is exacerbating, circular economy. So the Annex 1 countries are forced, whether they like it or not, to be involved in our own processes, the developing countries.
Health matters to them too.
Exactly. Not only our health, but if we are not climate friendly, if we are not sustainable with the environment, it is still the same planet, it's still the same hemisphere, so it still affects them. The ice glaciers, the breaking, everything, it still comes, it's all connected. Yes. It's all interconnected. So they have to be involved. So it's now time, we have to be strategic. We have to be able to draw a map that will help us to be able to know, help us to prioritize what are the heavy weights that we need to start to address. Character education, we can now begin to work on that and ourselves and say, how do we begin to scale the process and progress from community to community? I think that by the time we begin to see how we can develop ambassadors within ourselves, like I said again earlier on, that what you give to a riverine area as a mitigating strategy or an adaptation strategy, it's totally different from what you give to somebody in a dryland or in an arid area, So understanding, and that is, data also helps you to be able to determine that, because even the locals there will tell you, this is the style, this is how we do our things, and this is how we want you to help us, So deliberately connecting with the communities, the vulnerable societies, understanding what is unique as their own climate issues, their own climate difficulties, helping them to be able to, understand how to build resilience in that place and how to be able to mitigate their structures for a sustainable environment.
So, I mean, it's interesting hearing you speak, because I was just going to ask you that, because you are touched on the heavyweights, right? If you are, I mean, I'm sure you have your blueprint already ready for us, and all of that. So what are the heavyweights you are looking to touch on? Mm-hmm. And, just to add to that, we had a conversation about the shutting down of some of these marketplaces. We don't have better alternatives in terms of like structures, right, compared to what we have in other places. So there is the Kara market, for instance, where they slaughter all the cows and all of that. If you go there, it's a complete eyesore. Like literally, if I go there, I don't think I want to eat anything that comes out of that place, right? So what are your heavyweights that you're looking to tackle, within the period that you will be, serving the people?
I can't, shout out enough about advocacy and education and enlightenment. I think that the mindset about climate change and circular economy has to be well knowledgeable to every average person on the streets. It is an adaptable process that I am willing to continue to interrogate until it becomes very obtainable for the last young person to grasp the need and the efficacy of, being climate friendly in their choices, in their behaviors. Study shows that for Lagos or for Nigeria, the highest ranking contributor to climate change is generator emission.
Tell me about it.
That personal generator emission, that is so, it's beyond just degenerative, because that is a huge contributor. That is what is really affecting, the carbon emission, where it is that we want to draw it from. And so I would like to look into the area of conversion into solar energy. Just, creating various platforms for partnerships and collaborations to scale, solar energy provision for each household in Lagos State. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just the barest minimum, that can reduce noise, that can reduce emission, that is energy efficient, and also be able to provide that good life, ease of life, for the average person. So I'm really, really keen on, renewable energy, the use of it for power, to be able to reduce reliance on the fossil fuels. I'm also big on conversion of our cars to electric vehicles.
Okay.
I think that transportation is another area, because it's actually the third ranking on that statistic. So the first is the personal generators, and then the second is the landfill emissions.
Wow.
Yes, that's the second. And the third is vehicular emissions. Yes. And so I think that we have people who are keen, partners, international organizations who are keen on bringing in electric vehicles. And what makes it even more magical is that there are models and technologies right now, innovations right now, that is able to help convert fossil fuel engines to electric. So where the key, where the funding or where the investment really lies in, is not necessarily in the electric vehicles, but it is in the charging, the charging stations that need to be established. Lamata is already doing great in that space. Kudos to Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu regime, administration. We have the blue rail, the red rail is coming. They've already started to convert our rail to electric right now. We have the CNG arrangement with O&O moving our mass transit buses to gas right now. So it's a great quotient. It's a great stock index for us, and this is one of the things that the investors and capital venture platforms are interested. They want to see, so we have room. There's opportunity for us. We just need to be more strategic, like I said, if you're ranking and you're pulling out which ones are the heavy weights, how can we start to diffuse those heavyweights so that we can have more ease and we can be able to build a sustainable environment?
Fantastic. I mean, I was at the World Tourism event organized by, I think it was Sterling Bank. They also rolled that. Yeah, they're part of your partners, because I saw a lot of Lagos State government officials supporting the initiative. They have the tricycles, they have the what's it called, the cargo trucks, and they have the mini cars that can take, I think, about five people for transport, and all of them are all powered by electric. I mean, that's fantastic. I like the dream, and I'm hoping that we're able to achieve it, because the truth is, I really want the government to succeed. If you succeed, it's a cleaner Lagos for me, it's a healthier place for me, and it's a more friendlier place to live in, right? Because Lagos has so many challenges, and I mean, you're just hearing you speak alone, I see you plug into so many ministries, so many, because you have to really be that. So you go and check Ministry of Works. Are you compliant? You check environment. There's a lot that is tied. Yes, there's a lot that is tied to your what's it called, your portfolio. There's a lot that is tied to your portfolio. So I'm really hoping that you succeed, and thank you so much. Do you have any final thing to say to us?
Well, I'd like to say that the Yuletide season is coming in. Okay. And it's an opportunity. Every time I get an opportunity to talk, what I want to say is that please be mindful of your consumption pattern. Be climate aware. Single use of plastic is not a climate friendly habit, right? Instead of if you use the plastic, use a flask for your water, and when you're disposing your bottles, do it responsibly. Do it, where there's a chain that can easily be plugged to, so it's not landing, in the gutter or landing in oceans, ultimately. And, spending, I really want to, and I know this is a tall order, but I'm really trying to push for recycling of clothes, even luxury clothes, because even the West is getting more and more embraced with vintage luxury.
What do they call the market again?
Yes, they call it's vintage. Yes, you understand. We have a lot of our middle class, upper middle class in the season of giving. Let's learn how to give. these are things that our ladies are very aspirational about. Rather than have them go and buy, let's learn how to be able to recycle these things. And we have people who have tons of these clothes, bags and shoes, and that they can just just let go and just help somebody else. And these are practices that we want to infuse in the knowledge pack that we want to start to engage people on. Those are my last words.
Awesome. And I'm looking forward to partnering with you. I mean, when you told me the idea, I said, no, this is a no-brainer. We look forward to the time where we roll out some of those campaigns, because it's very important. The key, what's it called, driver for some of these fantastic initiatives is also education. Absolutely. People need to continue to hear it. So the media must continue to work. Thank you so much, Titi Oshodi.